Hey everyone, welcome back to Bryan's Mysteries and Adventures on Trail. Please stay tuned to the end of the video for some updates on the channel. In today's video, we're going to be talking about the disappearance of Linda and Gary Haas. This case happened all the way back in 2010. Linda and Gary Haas were just absolutely amazing people. They were living in the small town of Tecumseh, Oklahoma. Here is a map. It's that little trapezoidal type figure in the red there on the right. Here are some pictures of the very small town. Gary and Linda had been together for 40 years. Here is a picture of the couple. They absolutely loved everything about the outdoors, fishing, camping. They had been high school sweethearts. Everyone who knew them said they were the most loving couple ever. They never knew any couple that was more in love than Gary and Linda. Here's a picture of Gary in front of their trailer. Every year they would take a trip where they would go and adventure, explore new places. In August of 2010, they were headed to Pacosa Springs, Colorado. The couple left their home in Tecumseh, Oklahoma on August 2nd of 2010 and started the drive out to Pacosa Springs, Colorado. Here is a map of what it would take if you were to drive straight, but they were planning on taking their time, camping and fishing along the way. They had a white truck and they were pulling a Cougar camping trailer that they had used for several years. Here's a picture of the couple with their truck and camping trailer. Sadly, when they left for this trip, they had no idea that it was going to be their last trip, and neither did anyone else. According to what we do know, the first day or so went as planned for the couple. They were traveling in the direction of Colorado, making some stops along the way. Then on August 4th of 2010, an agent of the New Mexico State Police was patrolling a very remote part of this desert road in Guadalupe County, New Mexico. He received a call from a rancher that was way off the main road. On that call, the rancher reported that he saw a relatively new, burnt-out trailer that was abandoned. The state trooper had to travel roughly 3 miles off of the main dirt road just to get to this crime scene. When he got there, nothing could have prepared him for what he was about to see. This is what he saw. There were already local sheriff's officers there, taping off the crime scene, trying to assess what had happened. There was no heat or smoke, so they did know that it had been a while since this fire had gone out. It was so badly burned that it was just a metal frame. They could tell it was a trailer. The axles were still there, but the wheels and tires were completely burned out. The wheel rims were still there. As the agents got closer, they made a horrifying discovery. They discovered 2 bodies within the ashes. This now became a homicide investigation. However, they had no clue who they were. Aside the burnt-out trailer, in the surrounding area, there was just some old stables, 1 old building. They found 2 dogs sitting there, and someone had put out a pile of dog food for them. The dogs not only had name collars on them, but the name collars had phone numbers. This is how they were able to identify the dogs as belonging to Gary and Linda Haas. The police then had the awful task of contacting their family members and telling them what they had found and that they believed that they thought that Gary and Linda had died in this fire in their trailer. They also told the families they knew this was no accident, that this was a homicide. The family members and loved ones were, of course, all devastated, and they couldn't imagine who would have wanted to hurt Gary or Linda. The state police brought in their forensics unit that had to painstakingly go through all the ashes, and at this point, they found bullet fragments. There were no weapons found at the scene, and the vehicle that had been pulling the trailer was not at the scene. The family members told the police that Gary and Linda were driving a 4-door white Chevrolet pickup truck. The main detective investigating the case then put out a bolo alert all across the Southwest. He then followed the main road out that he knew the assailants must have taken to get into that location, called Frontage Road. He found a gas station that had CCTV footage. When he reviewed the footage, he actually saw Gary and Linda's truck pulling the trailer. Then around 40 minutes later, they saw the truck coming back with no trailer. Here is a picture of that CCTV footage. It was very grainy, but they could tell it was definitely their truck. When the police got the forensics back, the bullets were so badly burned that they weren't able to give them any further information, although they realized that they were dealing with very hardened criminals. At the same time, the authorities got a call that told them that the Haas's pickup truck was equipped with an onboard satellite tracking system. They were able to access the system, and they found that the pickup truck was parked somewhere in Albuquerque, New Mexico. They immediately dispatched a whole team of officers to the location, which was in a very remote part of Albuquerque. So this led the authorities to believe that whoever did this was possibly familiar with that city. Here's an actual picture of the vehicle when it was found. When they first arrived, they weren't sure if the perpetrators were coming back, if they might have been in the vehicle. They waited several hours until they finally moved in on the vehicle and declared it a crime scene. Because this investigation at this point had gotten so large and had crossed several states, the FBI was called in to assist. The FBI, of course, having state-of-the-art facilities, they brought in their forensics team to go over the vehicle. The first thing they noticed was that on the outside of the vehicle, there was all these dark sort of black smudges as seen right here in swirl patterns. On the inside of the vehicle, they found a roll of paper towels. They also found a bunch of used paper towels that also had this dark black liquid on it. Then they found this bottle of brake fluid. According to the authorities, this was a method used in the 80s and 90s by car thieves that were trying to remove fingerprints and evidence, so they knew that they were probably dealing with ex-cons. They also found the plastic wrapping that the paper towels had come in. They believed that this was their best possible chance at finding any fingerprints, so they sent this off to the FBI lab to be tested. Also found inside the truck was a receipt from a Walmart in Elk City, Oklahoma. This Walmart is located around 320 miles from the crime scene. Here are some maps of the distance from Albuquerque to that town in Oklahoma, and here's a map just to show you how small of a town it is. The timestamp on the Walmart receipt was 8:06 a.m. on August 2nd of 2010. The items were purchased using one of Gary's credit or debit cards, and it looked like they had purchased items for their trailer, some shock cords and some tie-down cords. They immediately sent agents to that Walmart location, and thankfully they had CCTV footage that was still available. The footage was then sent back to the New Mexico State Police for investigation. They were able to view the footage. They saw that it was Gary and Linda who purchased those items. They were able to catch this CCTV footage. They also realized that at the time they weren't under any duress or stress of any kind. They were also able to see the outside CCTV footage, which showed the couple driving away. They knew based on all this information that something happened to them in the next 5 hours, but they didn't know when or where. They were running short on leads until they got a phone call from one of the investigators saying that they had found a single fingerprint on the bag of paper towels and that they had gotten a match. The match came back to a 45-year-old man named John McCluskey. When they ran his records, they were dumbfounded because John McCluskey was supposed to be in a state prison in Arizona. They then came to the horrifying realization that on July 30th of 2010, John McCluskey, Tracy Providence, and Daniel Renwick had all escaped from this state prison in Arizona. Not only that, these three were considered the most dangerous prisoners in that prison. John McCluskey was in for attempted murder. The other two were both convicted murderers. The investigators then found out that these 3 prisoners had escaped by simply jumping over the first few fences, climbing over another one. When they got to the final one, somebody on the outside had provided them with metal cutters of some kind. Someone had thrown these wire cutters over the fence in plastic bags. They then paired up with their accomplice on the outside with some kind of a vehicle. At the time that Linda and Gary had left for their vacation, these 4 criminals were on the run for roughly 3 days. This was not only shocking and terrifying to the authorities, but as well to the community and to the family members of Gary and Linda. The authorities knew that even though these criminals were already ridiculously dangerous at that time, they were going to be even more dangerous because they didn't want to go back to prison. The state police, FBI, U.S. Marshals all set up a nationwide manhunt. They also issued a public appeal for anyone that possibly had seen any of these criminals, or if they did see them, to please contact the authorities, to not approach them in any way. Once they had made this public appeal, there were sightings all over the country. The West Coast, the Midwest, the Southwest, up near the border of Canada, down near the border of Mexico. They, of course, have to follow up all of these leads, and most of them, unfortunately, were dead ends, until they got a phone call from a woman in Meeteetse, Wyoming. This is over 900 miles away from where Gary and Linda's truck was found. Meeteetse, Wyoming is a very small community. A woman living there called in and said that she saw someone that looked exactly like one of the escaped convicts, Tracy Provence. She said that this man had just recently started coming to her church. They dispatched local law enforcement. They saw this man on the side of the road trying to hitchhike. They then followed him back to a motel where he stayed the night. The next morning, they moved in and arrested him. He did not put up any kind of fight, and the police were immediately able to identify him as one of the escaped convicts, Tracy Provence. During his interrogation, the authorities wanted to know how they all had escaped. He told them that they had an outside accomplice, a female named Cassie Welch. She had not only supplied them with the wire cutters and pliers, she also supplied them all with firearms, and she herself was armed with a rifle. The agents needed to verify his statement, so they contacted the prison and cross-referenced the name Cassie Welch, and it came up as her being the girlfriend of John McCluskey, and they frequently talked on the prison phone. They then pushed Tracy Provence for more information. He then told them that they only stopped at truck stations or gas stations, that Cassie was the one that knew the directions. They then pressed him for information, and they wanted to know what happened to Gary and Linda Haas. He first told them that very early on, Daniel Renwick left the group and headed to Colorado. According to Tracy Provence, he said that they had just stopped Gary and Linda and were just going to rob them for gas and food money. He pinned all the blame on John McCluskey. He said that he had gone off to use the restroom. He heard the gunshots. He came running back and said, "What the heck are you doing?" And John McCluskey said that he couldn't leave any witnesses. Tracy Provence then stated that this created a rift between him and John McCluskey, and they decided to go their separate ways. He said that Casey and John dropped him off in Wyoming. He then claimed that after he was dropped off, he had no idea what direction the other two were going in. He only knew that they were planning to live off the grid. He said that they would most likely keep changing vehicles to try and stay undetected. This didn't really help the investigators because the other two could be anywhere at this point. So they pushed Tracy a little bit more, and he did say that, well, after they dropped the truck off, they changed vehicles and John McCluskey had to change his clothes. He said he knew they went to the nearest Walmart in Phoenix, Arizona. The authorities were able to go to that location, pull the CCTV footage, then piece together other video footage and track his movements, but unfortunately then they lost him. That was until they received a phone call from a forest worker working in this campground located in eastern Arizona. I'm going to have a map up just to show you the location in relevance to Phoenix, Arizona. On August 19th of 2020, the FBI sent a SWAT team to assist the U.S. Marshals when approaching this state park and viewing the campsite of where they thought these two criminals were. They approached with caution. They looked like they were both inside a tent. Here are some more pictures of those campgrounds and the terrain. Once they saw McCluskey stick his head outside of the tent, they moved in. They surrounded them. They immediately arrested both of these criminals. Here is a picture of the actual arrest of John McCluskey. Once in custody, they immediately wanted to know who killed Linda and Gary Haas. John McCluskey said that after they escaped, he was on I-40 east of Albuquerque. He said that he needed a vehicle. He was very cold and callous during his whole interview. He said that he told the couple that he was just going to take their money, but he said that he had planned on killing them the whole time. He just awful listening to it. No remorse, no feeling whatsoever, and he actually wore Gary's hat after he committed this horrible act. They asked him why he came back to Arizona, and he simply said, "Well, you can't go where you don't know." John McCluskey was sentenced to life in prison plus 230 years. Tracy Province pled guilty and was sentenced to 5 consecutive life terms. Daniel Renwick was eventually captured in Colorado after a shootout with police. He was sentenced to an additional 60 years of his already life sentence. Cashlyn Welch was sentenced to 40 years to life in prison. Despite the fact that none of these people will ever get out of jail, it's still really no justice for this loving, wonderful couple that had been together for over 40 years and were just doing what they loved, camping, going on a fishing trip. Their lives taken away in such a horrible manner for a truck and a little bit of cash. My thoughts and prayers go out to Gary and Linda Haas, their families, all their loved ones, all their friends. Also to all the authorities, both state and federal, that worked so hard in bringing this family a little bit of justice. I hope and pray that in time, with enough time, the family members and friends will heal and find peace. I'm so sorry for your loss. Thank you all for watching, your support, your comments, your feedback. I love hearing from you all. Definitely leave me some comments in the comment section. If you haven't subscribed, please consider subscribing. It's free and really helps out the channel a lot. Special thank you to co.ag for providing the background music. Hopefully I'll see you all in the next one. Take care. Hey everyone, thanks for sticking with me to the end. I really appreciate it. I'm sorry about the upload schedule. I've had serious difficulties and we've had several power outages, and anyway, I lost a lot of my video content that I was just preparing to upload. Thankfully, I was able to salvage most of it, but I have to do the narrating all over. But I will be getting back to my usual upload schedule, and I appreciate you all being patient. Next video coming this weekend. Hopefully you all stay tuned in for that. Have a wonderful week. Stay safe out there and see you in the next one.